Does an enemy change your heart, or does the enemy just reveal that which is already there?
Today we continue the series of studies on our enemies and what the Bible says we can learn from them. Welcome to Faith for Today.
No membership test, no lines of birth or race or accomplishment, a church for people who have made errors. That's what this church is here for. You want a church that's made for sinners, just a whole lot like you, this is the place.
I knew a man who was very bitter about life. He was angry and extremely cynical. I asked him why he was so bitter, and he told me it was because of all the hard knocks he had taken in his life. His enemies had made him very angry, cynical, just an old angry man. While I have no doubt that life's difficulties can change you, I've also known people who have experienced equally difficult times who have had the opposite response. Their lives are filled with hope and courage. Why would one person respond negatively to difficult times while another person responds so positively? Why is it that some people can learn positive lessons from difficult times while others never really seem to get it?
I'm not real sure why that happens that way. It reminds me of an interview that someone did with Woody Allen. Allen's career had taken off after he directed the 1969 hit movie Take the Money and Run. And throughout the next 3 decades, Allen became one of the most prolific and beloved comedic filmmakers of the 20th century. But in 1992, Allen's personal life trumped the work on the big screen because he admitted to having had an affair with the adopted daughter of his longtime girlfriend, Mia Farrow. The girl, Soon-Yi Previn, was 22 years old at the time. Well, despite a vicious custody battle with Farrow over other children, Allen and Previn continued their relationship, and they were married in 1997, and Allen was 62 years old at that time. In a November 2005 interview with Vanity Fair, he admitted that he had made some mistakes in his life. He said, "I'm sure there are things that I might have done differently. Probably in retrospect," he said, "I should have bowed out of that relationship with Mia Farrow much earlier than I did." But Allen, who was now about to turn 70 years old at the time of this interview, admitted that age had not brought discretion. He said, "I've gained no wisdom, no insight, no mellowing. I would probably make all the same mistakes again today."
Wow, that's kind of sad. So what makes the difference? Why do different people respond differently to difficult times in life? Why do some learn and some do not? Why do some become cynical and jaded while others remain positive? Could it be that enemies and difficult times do not change the heart so much as they reveal that which is already in the heart? We will be examining this issue today, but before we open the Bible together, let's join the Arlington Seventh-day Adventist Church as we sing praises to the only one who can change a heart.
My soul, and I stand amazed at the blessings I know, and still to this day the mercies you show make it clear to see that you love me. And you give each breath I breathe. You've covered the sky with beauty for me. You've proven that you will provide for my needs the way you fill me, Lord. How could I ask for more But Lord, hear my plea, and may it be that you're satisfied with me. And you give me grace without end, and you have forever removed all my sin, and now the maker of heaven and earth calls me friend, and from the joy this brings, oh, how my spirit sings. I'm satisfied, I've been cared for so faithfully. But Lord, hear my plea, and may it be that you're satisfied with me. Oh, yeah. But Lord, hear my plea, and may it be that you're satisfied. Are you satisfied? Please say you're satisfied with me.
What do you believe to be true about God? What is it that you think about God? By that I mean, who is God? What is He like? What is His character like? How does He interact with us on this planet? I'm not talking about what you say you believe about God. I'm asking about what you really, truly believe, not what you think you ought to believe, but that which is deeply ingrained, so deeply ingrained you may not even be aware of it. What do you truly believe about God? Sometimes what we say we believe and what we truly believe are two different things, and we may not even be aware that they are different things until a crisis comes into our lives and it makes it crystal clear for us. We have a loss. We have something else that's happening in our life, some terrible calamity, or maybe there's an enemy in your life who has affected you negatively, and all of a sudden you realize that what you've said you believe and what you truly believe about God may be two different things. They may actually be in conflict with one another. What do you truly believe to be true about God? We have been studying our enemies as of late, and we have learned that we can learn something from our enemies. I've entitled the series, as many of you know, In Defense of Snidely, Whiplash. Snidely Whiplash being the arch villain in the old Dudley Do-Right cartoons, and when I have an enemy, I see myself much as Dudley, standing for that which is pure, right, true, and honest and good, don't you? And my enemy is definitely a Snidely Whiplash. He stands for everything that is wrong. And so I caricaturize my enemy that way, but to leave it there would be a mistake, because truthfully, we can learn something from our enemies. We can learn something from them, something that is of spiritual value. And so we've been looking at that through this sermon series. Today we will learn something very important. We're going to learn a lesson, and the lesson is this: our enemies reveal to us what we really think about God. Our enemies reveal to us that which we truly believe to be true about God. Again, this is not what we say we believe or what we think we should say that we believe.
It is what we really believe. Hard times reveal our beliefs about God and His sovereignty. Hard times do that. Listen to these words from Craig Barnes. This is a quote that I want you to pay attention to. It says this: "The deep fear behind every loss is that we have been abandoned by the God who should have saved us. The transforming moment in Christian conversion comes when we realize that even God has left us. When we discover it was not God, but our image of God that abandoned us, only then is change possible." Hold on to that. Mull that through your mind. I'm asking you this: is it possible that what you say you believe about God and what you truly believe about Him are two different things? The only way to know for sure is to examine what we do, think, and feel in times of crisis. In a time of emergency, when an enemy strikes in your life, how do you respond to that? That's what you truly believe to be true about God. That's what reveals it to us. Well, Joseph was a young man who had his personal beliefs about God challenged at many times during his life. Joseph was Jacob's favorite son. Now, if you have more than one child, let me tell you, it is never a good idea to have a favorite child. And if you do have a favorite child, it is a greater mistake to reveal to anyone who that favorite might be, or to display favoritism by the way you treat that child. That is always a mistake, because the less favored children will notice it, their self-esteem will be destroyed, and they will tend to hate the favored child. The favored child is likely to become pampered and spoiled and a real brat, maybe no longer being your favorite child, who knows? But it is always a mistake to have a favorite child. Well, Jacob evidently didn't read that book, because he had a favorite child, and that favorite child was Joseph. Joseph's older siblings hated him with a passion. They despised this spoiled young brat. Joseph did not help matters any, since he was always telling these dreams that he had had. And these dreams always seemed to make him the hero or the center of attention, because it had basically his father and his older brothers all bowing down in subservience to Joseph. And of course, that did not set well with the older brothers. You can imagine that older brothers would not be any too happy about a dream like that. Well, all of this came to a head one day when Joseph's brothers were out caring for the flocks, and they'd been gone for some time, and Jacob began to worry about them. So he asked Joseph to go check up on them. Go find them and bring me some news about them. Open your Bible, if you would please, to Genesis chapter 37. We're going to start with verse 17, the second part of that verse. And we're going to let the scripture tell us a part of this story here. Genesis 37, beginning with verse 17, it says, "So Joseph went after his brothers and found them near Dothan. But they saw him in the distance, and before he reached them, they plotted to kill him. 'Here comes that dreamer,' they said to each other. 'Come now, let's kill him and throw him into one of these cisterns and say that a ferocious animal devoured him. Then we'll see what becomes of his dreams.'" This is not your normal sibling rivalry. This is taken to a fever pitch. They despise this guy so much, they want to kill him, and they're willing to do it. There's agreement among them. Yeah, we can do this. This is easy. It will make a good story. It's believable. Joseph, in part, is hated because he is probably going to get the birthright. Now, the birthright usually went to the oldest son, and Joseph was not truly the oldest son. He was the oldest son of Jacob's favorite wife, Rachel. But the other brothers, all but Benjamin, were older than Joseph. Still, Joseph was going to get that birthright, which meant he would receive the blessings, the special blessings of the birthright. He would receive an extra share of the inheritance, and the brothers figure, we get rid of him. We get rid of him, that's more for the rest of us to share among ourselves. This is a good deal. Plus, we get rid of those stupid dreams as well. So they were going to kill him because they hated him and they wanted the birthright. Reuben, however, was the oldest son. He was Leah's son, and he was the oldest of all 12 sons. He, though, had a different plan. He didn't want to speak up. He didn't want to tell them, no, let's not kill him. We can't do this to Dad. But what he had was a plan. He said, no, let's not kill him right now. Let's put him into one of these empty cisterns, and we'll leave him there. And his plan was to come back and to rescue the boy and take him home to his father and tell his father, don't ever let him come out to see us again, in order to protect the boy's life. So they agreed. They put him in the cistern, and Joseph was crying like crazy. They put him in there. But Reuben had to go off and do something else, and while he was gone, a caravan came by. And the brothers decided, it's time, let's do something else with him. Let's sell him. Judah was one of the older brothers who said, let's get some money out of this. Let's sell him into slavery, and then we'll never hear from him again. And then his blood won't be on our hands, he'll just be gone. So that's what happened. He was carried away to Egypt as a slave. When Reuben returned from this, he found the cistern empty, and he became extremely distraught. Look at that at verse 29. Chapter 27, verse 29. When Reuben returned to the cistern and saw that Joseph was not there, he tore his clothes. This was a sign of great weeping, a great mourning, anxiety. Verse 30, he went back to his brothers and said, the boy isn't there. Where can I turn now? Reuben was concerned for his father, and being the oldest son, he was the one who was responsible. He knew that Joseph's death or disappearance would absolutely break the old man's heart. As much as Reuben hated Joseph, he loved his father and did not want to cause the old man unnecessary pain. He did not want him to grieve over the loss of this most favored son. Now that Joseph was gone, though, the brothers had to decide what to tell their father. They had to come up with a story, they decided. So they took Joseph's coat, a very expensive coat that Jacob had made especially for Joseph. They dipped it in the blood of a goat that they had killed, and then they were going to bring it back to their father and tell him this story. We found this coat. Is this not Joseph's coat? We believe it is. Perhaps a wild animal has killed him, and he is gone. So they took it and they gave this story to him, and Jacob was distraught. Look at verses 34 and 35 of chapter 37. It says, then Jacob tore his clothes, again a sign of great grief, put on sackcloth and mourned for his son many days. All his sons and daughters came to comfort him, but he refused to be comforted. No, he said, in mourning will I go down to the grave to my son. So his father wept for him. So it did cause him great pain. But now let's imagine for a moment that you are Joseph, that you are this teenage boy. He had been coddled all of his life. Dad was rich, he could spoil him greatly, and he had done just that. He had lived in the lap of luxury for that day. He was old enough, he should have been out tending the flocks with his brothers, but was not. He was staying home with Daddy. And so he had been coddled all of his life, spoiled, born with a silver spoon in his mouth, you might say. But now, all of a sudden, his brothers have stripped him away from home and family, and they have sold him as a slave. Jacob was rich and had spoiled the boy, and now the boy was living in absolute poverty. He was a slave. He had nothing. He had no rights. He was subject to beatings. He was fed food that he before would not have even thought of feeding to his animals. He went from luxury to nothing, to humiliation. It was more than what he could bear, more than what he could think of, more than what he could have imagined. Joseph went from living the life of luxury to a life of abject poverty and humiliation. What goes through your mind when things go wrong for you? What do you begin to think? How do you respond? How do you react when things turn wrong for you? What we really believe about God is demonstrated at these times. It's demonstrated by the way we respond. Let's turn again to the words of Craig Barnes. I want to look at that quotation one more time now in the light of the story that we've just read. The deep fear behind every loss is that we have been abandoned by the God who should have saved us. The transforming moment in Christian conversion comes when we realize that even God has left us. When we discover it was not God, but our image of God that abandoned us, only then is change possible. Joseph's crisis was not just of losing his father and his home and his future. Joseph's crisis may have been that he lost his God, or at least his idea of who God was. He had to struggle with who God was, where God was, and how he fit into this whole picture. That may have been a greater struggle, a greater crisis for Joseph than anything else. Certainly, he cried out to God. He cried out, God, why me? Why have you allowed this to happen to me? What have I done that is so wrong that you would cause this terrible thing to befall me? Why me, God? You ever cried that? You ever prayed that prayer? Up until this point in Joseph's young life, it must have seemed that God had chosen to give him special favors. He was loved. He lived in luxury. Life was good. Life was easy. He was protected as a young boy. And perhaps Joseph came to the point where he expected that this is how life should be. This is how it should be for me. I should be protected. But when all of that is taken away, it challenges the thinking. It challenges the thinking. We tend to take God's blessings for granted. You have things in your life that most of the world does not have. You are wealthy compared to the rest of the planet. And I don't care how big your Visa bill is or how little you've got in the bank account. You live in this country. And you are wealthy compared to the rest of the world. Do you really think you deserve that? If we come to that point in our thinking, I believe we're thinking something that is wrong, something that is unhealthy, something that is unbiblical. We've taken the gifts for granted. It is possible for us to subconsciously believe that we deserve God's special care, and if those gifts are ever removed, then we turn to the giver of the gifts and we blame him. How dare you take from me that which was mine? How dare you take from me that which I deserved? How dare you do this? God, you're not fair. We may question his goodness, his character, his fairness. We may question his existence. Our image of God has been destroyed. Like Joseph, Bill had lived a charmed life. He grew up in a fine home, and although they were not rich, he never wanted for anything. He had plenty, and he finished college and went right to graduate school. He finished his graduate degree, and he got the very first job he applied for, which was the job he wanted all along. Advancements seemed to come easily for him. Everything he did turned out right. The future was bright. He had a great future in this company until a co-worker, a female, became extremely jealous of his success. She saw him as an impediment to her own advancement in the company, so she had a plan to get rid of him. She accused him of sexual harassment, even though he was not guilty of this crime. And her accusation was strong enough that basically Bill lost his job, and he lost his job being branded as someone who would engage in sexual harassment, which meant it was almost impossible for him to find another job, certainly not one that was equal to the one that he had just been let go of. Her accusation branded him. His life had been turned upside down. He had lost just about everything. When I spoke to Bill, you could see the anger and the resentment in his eyes. You could hear it in his voice. And as I spoke to him, he said, I don't believe in God anymore. I don't believe in God. For Bill, God had died. It really wasn't God who had died, but Bill's inaccurate picture of God. Bill had come to see God as the giver of gifts. Gifts that he deserved, he thought, because after all, he'd worked hard and he was a good person. He deserved those gifts. And when they were removed, God was unjust, God was unfair, God was wrong. He felt that he had been rejected by God, therefore he turned around and rejected God, ultimately saying, he doesn't even exist. This God does not exist. I don't believe in him anymore. Folks, your enemies reveal what you really believe about God. Are your pictures of God accurate or are they inaccurate? Have you come to believe a lie about God? Have you come to believe that you truly deserve the things that you've received from his hand? What do you really believe about God?
Does today's hectic lifestyle sometimes leave you feeling tired, empty, and missing out on what really counts in life? Do you crave fulfillment, yet nothing seems to satisfy that inner longing? Each week, the Faith for Today broadcast brings you hope, encouragement, and inspiration through music and a message especially designed to lift your spirits. If you love the broadcast, you'll love our website, faithfortoday.tv. Log on and watch this week's program or others in a series. Get a printed copy of this week's sermon, or you can order one of Pastor Mike Tucker's uplifting books. You can also keep abreast of happenings at Faith for Today, including discovering some of the ministry's other inspirational television programs. You may also become a part of Faith for Today by becoming a ministry partner. So go ahead, log on to faithfortoday.tv, a daily source of hope and inspiration. It's faith for you. Faith for Today, a place of grace.
We would love to send you a free copy of Pastor Mike Tucker's book, Your Heart's Desire. This easy-to-read book illustrates God's longing for a relationship with you and how that can fulfill your ultimate heart's desire. Please contact us now for your free copy of Your Heart's Desire by calling toll-free at 1-888-940-0062 or log on to our website, www.faithfortoday.tv.
Joseph's hard times revealed that which God had already placed in his heart. Enemies and bad times didn't seem to make Joseph jaded, but instead they increased his trust in God. I hope this story encourages you to respond to your enemies in the same way. Allow the experience to help you rely on God and trust Him to bring you through.
We hope you've enjoyed today's program. If you've been blessed or at least challenged by what you've seen today, drop us a line at Faith for Today, P.O. Box 1000, Thousand Oaks, California, 91359, or visit us on the web at faithfortoday.tv, or call us at the number you see on the screen. We'd love to hear from you. We look forward to seeing you again next time on Faith for Today.
All the world can offer, all its power, its wealth and fame. Down the other, just a man with nail scars in his hands, but there is healing in his eyes, and there is power in his name. I choose Jesus. I choose Jesus without a solitary doubt. I choose Jesus, not for miracles, but for loving me, and not for Bethlehem, but for Calvary, not for a day, but for eternity. I choose Jesus.